What if I told you that religion might not be what you think? You probably already know this, but do you grasp the severity of it? For over 25 years, I've studied religion, cosmology, and ancient history. I've met top experts from around the world, and I am excited to share my research with you. Today, we're diving into 3 eye-opening stories that challenge our very idea of what religion is. First, we'll explore the origin story of Christianity and how it became the largest religion in the world. Next, we'll look at the origin of God and gods in various ancient religious texts. And finally, we'll look at the peculiar history of the Jehovah's Witnesses. By the end of the episode, let me know if our research helped you gain a deeper understanding of religion. Also, feel free to leave any questions you may have in the comments below. All right, let's jump in. What you're looking at here is a Melanesian cargo cult. Cargo cults are known literally all over the planet, and the largest cargo cult is Christianity. That is the largest cargo cult, okay? This cargo cult has its roots going back all the way into the time of the testing of bombs and the wars, when the US military would go to these islands and in these other foreign countries, and they would test weapons, they would test nukes, believe it or not. Bikini Atoll, they blew up the damn island. They moved the people off their own island and blew up the damn island. I mean, there's so much stuff we do that's crazy. But in the midst of this, in the midst of these islanders had never seen anyone before other than themselves, really. They started to see airplanes, weaponry, military soldiers walking with guns and rifles. They started to see, the USA, across the chest of the uniforms that the military wore. And also the military would give them cans of corned beef hash, bottles of water, MREs, and those kind of things. And so it was like the gods, in their eyes, the gods were blessing the tribe and bringing them these gifts for them being good people and so forth and so on, which led rise to prophets and everything else, right? You can see here that this tribe is still walking around with USA tattooed on their chest, or painted on their chest, really, with these artificial guns that are just sticks that have, bayonets on the edges, like they used to see when the military came there many decades ago, okay? So what happens when an advanced civilization meets a less advanced civilization, the lesser advanced civilization, it looks like this civilization is magical. They don't understand technology. And what do? We deify them instantaneously. They're deified. That's it. They're gods. They have to be gods. There's nothing else. There's no other thing it could be. These are gods because we don't understand their technology. Let's look at cargo cult. Let's look at the term itself. The reason why I'm reading this and I add this stuff in is so that you guys don't say, oh man, he's just making this stuff up. No. This is from the Anthropology Encyclopedia. Cargo cult. The term appeared in 1945 at the end of the Pacific War. Anthropologists rapidly embraced the neologism to label Melanesian social movements that had come to their attention during the colonial era, which began in the region in the second half of the 19th century, as well as post-war movements that captured ethnographic attention. A Southwest Pacific example of Messianic or millenarian movements was once common throughout the colonial world, and the modal cargo cult was an agitation or organized social movement of Melanesian villagers in pursuit of cargo by means of renewed or invented ritual action that they hoped would induce ancestral spirits or other powerful beings to provide. In other words, what they're saying here is, once these military soldiers started coming to the island with this cargo, in other words, these cans of these MREs and these cans of corned beef hash and bottles of water and soda and all this other kind of stuff and clothing and things, that's what they called cargo. And they thought that by calling on the ancestors, they can make these gods return and bring them more blessings. Okay. Sound familiar? Does it sound familiar to you? Typically an inspired prophet with messages from those spirits. Sound familiar? Sounds like a preacher, right? Here goes the preacher man getting ready to do his thing. Inspired prophet with messages from those spirits persuaded a community that social harmony and engagement in improvised ritual, dancing, marching, and flag raising, or revived cultural traditions would, for its believers, bring them cargo. Okay? So what they're saying is, this guy would then become the leader of the cult. He would become like the prophet, right? He's the pastor, the preacher, whatever you want to call it. And he is leading the dancing, the ritualistic dancing, the marching, raising of flags, and so forth and so on, basically in honor of these gods, so that they would bring back more cargo to bless the tribe. Okay? That was the whole thing behind this. This has happened so many times around this planet, you can't even count. I mean, I'm talking going even all the way back to Rome, when Rome encountered, back in the Roman era, when they were a super kingdom on the planet. And their technology to us right now would be damn near Stone Age, but to the people of the era, they were super high tech. So even when they encountered people with their level of technology, they looked like gods. It's the same thing that happened when Christopher Columbus accidentally got lost and kind of stumbled across those islands and got saved by indigenous tribes, and then decided, the tribes automatically assumed, based on a prophecy, that these were gods, returning, basically. It's the same thing that happens all over the planet. It not only happens all over the planet, I think it happens throughout maybe even the entire universe. That's my personal opinion. That's something I'm just adding in. I believe if we ourselves went to another planet and we came across people that were in the Stone Age, they would worship us almost instantly. That's just my opinion based on what I've seen researching these cargo cults. Look at these photos right here. You see these boys? They're already being trained now. They're being indoctrinated with the ideology of this belief system from birth. So now they're walking around with painted chests that say USA on them. They've got these artificial guns with bayonets at the tip, right? They're marching through the streets as if they're soldiers in honor of their God, so that they can bring back more cargo. Again, like I said, the way religion starts is a more advanced civilization interacts with a lesser advanced civilization. The lesser advanced civilization deifies them, and then when the next generation comes, they're indoctrinated. They're indoctrinated into this system, and personal inflections are added to the myth, lies, fabrications, things that can put people in positions of power over other people are added in as well. And then gradually, little by little, you have this self-made prison being built, where the people that are in the religion are the prisoners, and they're also the prison guards at the same time, which is pretty interesting. You can see down here in the lower left corner that these people actually even replicated one of the planes that they saw the military landing in, with the propeller and everything. You can see this flag that they made, right? They're very, very astute people. I mean, these are intelligent people. But again, the thing that eluded them was technology. They didn't understand it. And so because they didn't understand it, it became deified. And because they're very artistic, they were able to replicate all of this in this fashion. And this is one of many cargo cults that existed around the planet. Look at this. Check this out. Look at these planes. These are in honor. Look at this satellite dish. Look at the intricate level that they went to build this communications device that's really just made of straw and tree limbs and grass, probably, or whatever. Look at the intricate design here to work. Look how hard they worked to build this thing. And so what they would do is they would go out and pray underneath these objects that they built and look up at the sky for hours, hoping for the gods to return. Anthropology or cultivated a number of important keywords, including culture, ethnicity, worldview, socialization, ethnography, and the rite of passage. Among these terms is cargo cult, which, although more particular in scope, has enjoyed surprising popularity both inside the discipline and beyond. Peter Worsley, who compiled an early overview of cargo cults in The Trumpet Shall Sound, which is a book, offered what had already become the standard definition of cargo cults. Strange religious movements in the South Pacific during the last few decades. In these movements, a prophet announces the imminence of the end of the world in a cataclysm which will destroy everything. Now, this is coming out. This is what this author, Peter Worsley, had observed. Okay, listen to this. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Tell me if this story sounds similar. These are people who never heard of the Bible. Strange religious movements in the South Pacific appeared during the last few decades. In these movements, a prophet announces the imminence of the end of the world in a cataclysm which will destroy everything. Then the ancestors will return. Does this sound familiar to you guys? I'm just asking. Does this sound familiar? People who never heard of Jesus and the Bible and none of this stuff. Then the ancestors will return, or God, or some other liberating power will appear, bringing all the goods the people desire and ushering in a reign of eternal bliss. This was written in the 1950s, this book. This is an observation by an anthropologist who traveled to all these cults and realized they were all doing the same exact thing. The same exact thing that all religions are doing today around the entire world, pretty much. They are all going through the same exact process that I just described to you. A prophet announces that there's it's the end times. There's a cataclysm coming, right? To destroy the world. In Christianity, it's going to be destroyed by fire this time. The first time it was destroyed by water, now it's going to be destroyed by fire. But then there's a second coming. There's a return of the God that's going to come and liberate everyone who believes in him and who worships him properly. And you're going to get the eternal bliss. You're going to get eternal life. It's the same story. It's the same story. What's different? It's just the different advanced civilizations that meet up with the lesser advanced civilizations. That's what it is. If you look into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you discover again a situation where human beings deify people that came here from somewhere else. So we know that Thoth, according to his records, that he's not from Earth, just like a lot of these other people that worship these particular gods in different religions, which we're going to look at tonight as well. They all claim to not be from Earth. And what's interesting is when these gods with a lowercase g, when they leave, they become deified. Let's look at just a few paragraphs here in the preface of the Emerald Tablets. The history of the Emerald Tablets in the following pages is strange and beyond belief of modern scientists. Their antiquity is stupendous, dating back some 36,000 years BC. The writer is Thoth, an Atlantean priest king who founded a colony in the ancient Egypt after the sinking of the mother country. He was the builder of the Great Pyramid of Giza, erroneously attributed to Cheops. In it, he incorporated his knowledge of the ancient wisdom and also securely secreted records and instruments of ancient Atlantis. For some 16,000 years, he ruled the ancient race of Egypt from approximately 52,000 BC to 36,000 BC. At that time, the ancient barbarous race among which he and his followers had settled had been raised to a high degree of civilization. So they visited some people a very long time ago and raised them up to a high level of civilization in the land of Kem. Thoth was an immortal in that he had conquered death, passing only when he willed, and even then not through death. His vast wisdom made him ruler over the various Atlantean colonies, including the ones in South and Central America. We know that for a fact because over there he was known as Quetzalcoatl, Lord Pakal, Kukulkan, and many other names. Lord, Viracocha. When the time came for him to leave Egypt, he erected the Great Pyramid over the entrance to the Great Halls of Amenti, placed in it his records, and appointed guards for his secrets among the highest of his people. In later times, the descendants of these guards became the Pyramid Priests, by which Thoth was deified as a god of wisdom. He's not a god. Some of his relatives pretended to be gods. They masqueraded as gods because they found it was a lot easier to get the people to worship them, to do the work without them knowing that they were slaves, right? But Thoth was actually opposite of that. He did the work for the people, helped the people, instructed the people, taught the people, and lived amongst the people as a normal person. even though he was seen as an extremely wise man. Once he left the area, any particular region, any one of the ones he kickstarted many civilizations around the planet. He became, after he didn't come back for a certain amount of time, he became known as a deified god. This is what we do in our culture as a human race. We start to deify these people that we don't understand because they seem smarter than us. They seem wiser than us. They seem like they have abilities that we don't have. We don't understand technology. We don't understand spiritual sciences. We're just starting to tap into, through quantum physics, understanding spirituality. We're just at the very beginning stages of this. And we're talking about people that are a million years ahead of us. How do I tie this into the modern day biblical information? Well, there's UFOs throughout the entire Bible. Again, more evidence of people running into situations where they're seeing advanced technology and they're trying to use the words that they actually know in their language at that time, in that era, to describe what they saw. In actuality, what they've been describing many times over and over again throughout the entire book is our technological devices, and people using, or sometimes people inside of those devices flying around. So are there descriptions of UFOs described in the Bible? Yeah. Keep in mind, the Bible translators go far back as the 1600s. And basically what I did was I went through, and instead of doing every single one of these verses, okay, what I did was I said, let me just count the number of these particular items that appear to be technological. So there are 70 verses that are describing clouds as vehicles. There are 15 verses that describe pillars as vehicles, 10 that describe dwellings as vehicles flying in the sky, 160 verses that are lights and fire as vehicles. There are 17 verses that describe spinning wheels that can fly, 22 verses that describe dark and shining objects that fly. There are 37 verses of various objects in the Bible that are described as UFOs, and basically they're like flying furnaces, burning bushes, eagles' wings, smoke, stars, and other objects. And also don't forget the first fleet of the Elohim, okay, which is a plural name for gods, plural. Elohim is a plural term, and it's referencing the Elohim are from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. They're known in the Epic of Atrahasis as well as the Ijiji. That's the Elohim. They're the Ijiji, okay? That's a whole nother thing to get into. So virtually all religions either worship aliens or believe in aliens, and they don't even know it. And so when I talk about this, people seem to get really offended right away. They don't realize that they're worshiping aliens. I mean, it's admitted by them that they're worshiping aliens. They don't even want to admit it. So let's have a look at the definition of alien, right? A resident born in or belonging to another country, well, we know that. An entity from outer space. Okay, interesting. An entity from outer space. Now that the definition is clear, let's take some look at what the religions on the planet say and what their origins are. Christianity, 2.1 billion people worship Jesus. Islam, 1.3 billion people believe that the Prophet Muhammad was meditating in a cave of Hira by himself when the angel Gabriel, who's not from earth according to Gabriel, descended and came down from above to him and told him to recite the Iqra, the words of God, even though the Prophet Muhammad was illiterate at the time. He actually had to go hire a doggone guy to scribe for him because he couldn't even write what this angel/alien was telling him that came from space down to the planet, to the planet's surface to talk to him. Hinduism, 851 million people believe in that. Hindus hold that the cosmos is populated by numerous deities and spiritual beings, gods and goddesses or devas, who actually influence the world and who interact with humans. They're not from Earth. They're not from Earth. Buddhism, 375 million people, okay? The deities say certain branches of the larger Buddhist tradition, including the Mahayana, including a variety of gods and goddesses that are not from Earth. Mormons, 13.5 million. The angel Moroni, who's not from Earth, according to Angel Maroney, in Mormonism, is an angel that visited Joseph Smith on numerous occasions, beginning on September the 21st, 1823. According to Smith, the angel was the guardian of the golden plates, which the Latter-day Saints believed were the source of the material for the Book of Mormon, buried in a hill near Smith's home in western New York. This is just to name a few. Every single one of these religions believe that the people that they're worshiping and then honoring and everything else and praising and praying to are not from Earth. Their origin didn't start here. If I get into a spaceship and I fly to Mars and I meet somebody on Mars that lives on Mars, this is a hypothetical, I'm just making up a hypothetical for you, then that Martian person is going to look at me and say, I just got visited by an alien from Earth. I'm an alien to Mars. I'm an alien to anywhere else that I go in the universe. Why? Because I'm not from that exact location. I'm from here. And so by that definition, all of these people that are religious are all worshiping and praying to aliens. I don't care if you feel it. I don't care if you believe they're physical or non-physical corporeal bodies, multidimensional. It doesn't matter. They're not from Earth. They're aliens. You're worshiping an alien. Period, point blank. All religions worship aliens or believe in aliens, and they don't even know it. Period, point blank. There's no way to escape it. There's no way to run and hide from it. You're worshiping an alien. That's what you're doing. So just embrace it. Embrace it if you're going to be involved in it, right? So, you have another more modern cargo cult, the peculiar history of the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? That's a more modern cargo cult. We know how Christianity got started and how they went off, right? I mean, how did Christianity get spread around the world? Let's think about that for a minute. Christians will tell you that it was spread around the world by love and the gospel, the good news that had to be spread around the planet, right? That's not how Christianity got spread around the planet. Christianity got spread around the planet during the papal inquisitions alone, which spanned over 700 years, where the popes themselves ordered the killing and the murder of anyone who would not align with the church. And so the inquisitions, they went literally continent hopping, and they killed over 50 million people over the course of 700 years under the order of the popes that ruled in those eras. The papal inquisitions, look it up. That's how Christianity got spread around the planet. How did it get over here to the Americas? Well, the Spaniards came over here and the Europeans came over here, and they would take the chief or the chiefess or whatever, and then bring them out in front of the whole group of people, the tribe. And they'd say, you're gonna learn this, and if you don't want to learn this religion, then we're gonna have to kill you. And so, of course, after some going back and forth and learning some of the basic understanding on communication, a lot of these tribesmen would be like, no, this isn't for us. We're gonna maintain with our ancestral belief system, our spirituality. So what they would do is they would take that chief, that chiefess, and they would actually burn them at the stake in front of the whole tribe, hang them and torture them for days in front of the whole tribe. And so you're shown basically that if you don't fall in line, that could be you. And so once they do that, it's like breaking a horse, right? They take a horse, they put it in a gated area, and they literally work with that horse until they break it, until that horse can be ridden. It's the same exact thing they did with people around the planet. They went from continent to continent to continent to indigenous culture, one at a time, knocking them down, taking away their natural ancestral belief systems, and reinstalling this new Christianity belief system instead, building churches there. It was a very bloody situation, and they used it to convert this planet into Christianity. It was very bloody, very, very, very murderous, very heartbreaking, really is what it was as well. And so after you break the first generation of people that you're there with, then the second generation is being now taught, listen, this is what we got to do. By the third generation, they're full swing. They're coming in, they're born in with that illusion, they're born with the lie. They're taught from birth. They're worshiping, they're honoring, they're bending over and on their knees and begging and praying and giving offerings and everything else. by the fourth generation, they don't even have to think anymore. It's just built into them. They're automatically doing it. See? Jehovah's Witnesses, the same thing. The sect, now known as the Jehovah's Witnesses, was started by Charles Taze Russell, who was born in 1852. He was raised as a Congregationalist, but at the age of 17, he tried to convert an atheist to Christianity and ended up becoming converted instead, not to atheism, but to agnosticism. Some years later, he went to an Adventist meeting and was told that Jesus would be back at any time, and he got interested in the Bible. The leading light of Adventism had been William Miller, a flamboyant preacher who predicted that the world would end in 1843. Oops, another mistake there. When it didn't, he discovered the mathematical error, basically. He said, I screwed up, I made some bad calculations, so forth and so on. But a lot of people left it. But this guy, Charles Taze Russell, decided to move on and build his whole religion from scratch, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses. He started with the little magazines, the Watchtower magazines, and he built it from there, literally, okay? And this is a more modern religion. It's one of the newest ones that actually exist on the planet. The Bible itself that they read from is a completely converted and rewritten Bible. Words taken out, words changed around, paragraphs changed, Gnosticism added in some places taken out. I remember I was walking on the beach, okay? And that was where I go and do my 5-mile walks. And there was a group of, Jehovah's Witnesses out there, and they're screaming and carrying on and trying to stop people. I said, well, let me just stop. Because I need to see how much do these people know about their own religion. And so I stopped, and the lady started talking to me, and she started telling me about Jehovah's Witness and Jesus and all this other kind of stuff. And I said, okay, interesting. I said, I'll listen to you if you can answer some of my questions about your own religion. So she goes, oh yeah, sure. What do you want to know? I said, who is the person that founded this religion? She couldn't answer the question. She literally couldn't answer the question. I said, okay, well, that was Charles Taze Russell, who started with the Watchtowers. I started asking more questions. Like, what year was your Bible redesigned and basically written? Because it's not the original text. It's not the canonized Bible. She couldn't answer the question. I said, interesting. You don't know that either. Okay. I asked this lady so many questions, she couldn't answer any of them. And I said, tell me about this 144,000 that you guys are always talking about that are going to go to paradise. They don't call it heaven, they call it paradise. And she says, well, only 144,000 are going to make it to paradise. And so I said, 144,000, interesting. I said, well, how many people do you think there are on Earth? She said, about 3 or 4 million, I don't know. I said, 3 or 4 million? There's 3 or 4 million people in Florida where we are right now. There's 3 or 4 million people in this state. I said, do you realize that there's 310 million Americans? She goes, what? I said, yeah, there's 310 million people in America, and there's 7.8 billion people on Earth. Her eyes got big. I said, so if only 144,000 are going to make it, that's less than 0.1%. Why would you be telling this to anybody? Shouldn't you be keeping this a secret for yourself so you can be one of the ones that make it? Do you understand that you're spreading the information on what you believe? It's only 144,000 going to make it. Meanwhile, there's 7.8 billion people on the planet. So your odds are shrinking every time you talk about this. She went crazy. Oh my God, I can't. You can see her computer circuits burning up inside of her brain, and her brain's almost literally exploded, right? So again, a lot of this stuff is just, why is she doing this? Just, again, people are force-fed this stuff from a young age, and then they take it as a belief system, and they run away with it without ever researching any of it. I remember I was on the beach. Again, the same beach. I was sitting at the edge of the ocean. I had just got done doing my walk. Sometimes I sit at the edge of the ocean and do myself a little meditation. I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and I'm just listening to the ocean, and that's my music, right? A guy and a woman walk over. I don't see them walk over because they walk up from behind me, but all of a sudden I hear the sand shifting by my body. I open my eye, turn to my left, there's a guy standing there. Right away, when he handed me a bottle of water, I said, oh, here comes another one. He was trying to convert me into Christianity, right? He hands me the bottle of water. I said, you know what, this time I'm gonna take this damn water. I'm gonna have a conversation with these people. And the guy goes, have you taken Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? I said, no, why would I do that? He goes, what do you mean? I said, I am God. You're God? What are you talking about? I said, yeah, I'm God and God is me. The same divine spark that created everything in the entire universe is the same divine spark that's inside of every atom inside of my body. And so by that method, I am God and God is me. And so are you. And so is this young lady as well. We're all the same. We're all part of that same one divine consciousness. That threw him off right away. Then because he's a program code, he couldn't even conceive of what I had just told him. He didn't even have an epiphany with that. He went right back into his pitch. And I said, okay, I'll listen to you if you can answer some questions. Can you answer some questions? And I said, when was the Bible written? And he goes, oh, it was written thousands of years ago. I said, oh man. I said, no, the Bible wasn't written thousands of years ago. I said, do you even know who wrote the Bible? Oh yeah, Paul, Peter, John. I said, oh my God, listen, man. I said, you happen to stumble into one of the world's foremost experts on biblical texts, the Torah, the ancient tablets in the world. That's who you're talking to right now. Do you understand that the Bible was not written by any of the disciples? He got flabbergasted. I'm like, dude, listen to me. The disciples, if you were to do your studies, they were actually illiterate men. They couldn't read or write. There was nobody standing there transcribing every sentence they've spoken either. How did the Bible come along, even including the Old Testament? You've heard me say this before. They copied the majority of that stuff from the 𝗩𝗓𝗦𝗧𝗘, the 𝗪𝗃, the Mahabharata. You have some of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, right? You have in there, you have like, for example, the 42 laws of 𝗪𝗏𝗧. You know, that's where you get the 10 commandments that were extracted from that information. You have the Bhagavad Gita, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. You have the Sumerian tablets that are outside of the 𝗩𝗓𝗦𝗧𝗘. There's many tablets that exist. The Code of Hammurabi, the Epic of Gilgamesh. I mean, I can just keep going and going and going. And I said, then you have the Emerald Tablets, where Jesus's teachings are identical copies of Thoth's teachings from the ancient Kemetic mystery schools taught 50,000 years ago in the land of Kem, which is now known as Egypt. And I could see the steam coming out of this guy's ears. He couldn't even conceive what the heck I was telling him. And I said, do you know that the Bible was written thousands of years after the people were long gone, dead, buried, bones disintegrated, and everything else on the ground? He said, no, what are you talking about? I said, listen to me, man. The Bible was written from 100 AD to 900 AD. And who wrote the Bible? Those were followers of Thoth. These people didn't write a Bible, by the way. What they did was they started discovering in different caves and different little makeshift buildings that existed a long time ago, these vases with scriptures and cylinder scrolls and papyruses and tablets, and they started collecting them, and they started transcribing that information onto paper, parchment paper, and so forth. And so that text, that information over time would be studied by the Gnostics. Even in more time, much later, you have then the Coptic Christians, and then you also have the councils that were formed. Like, for one is the Council of Nicaea, who then started analyzing a lot of these copied and recopied and recopied and recopied and recopied texts, and started analyzing which ones to keep and which ones to keep out. Which ones to keep, they were thinking, let's make this into an actual canonized book. We'll take this and put that in here. We'll take this one. No, that talks about aliens. We don't want the book of Enoch in here because he's talking about aliens. Let's leave that one out. We don't want the myth of Adapa in here because he's talking about aliens. We don't want that in here. That's the book of Adam. We don't want that in here. So you have all these apocrypha texts that were kept out, right? And the Council of Nicaea coordinate and create this hodgepodge of a book based on hand-picked content, curated content that they wanted that would allow them to still maintain control over the people, over the masses of people. And that's how you get to the canonized book today that the majority of religious people read around the world, right? It's pretty crazy how in the 21st century, we're still running around believing in that stuff without doing any research about it, and still believing that there's a magic sky daddy with a magic wand in the sky waving it at you when you want somebody to win your basketball game and you want to win a war. Military soldiers actually pray to defeat their enemies in war. You think that there's a universal creator that can create universes, is going to come down into this dimension and grant you a magic wish that you would kill another person. And people actually believe this is true. They believe that this is like, yes, this sounds logical to me. The creator of planets and galaxies and universes would love to come down here and let me kill this guy. You see? You see how stupid, I'm saying it like this so you can see how dumb it sounds. So you can see how stupid it is. It's stupid. It's just outright dumb. And we keep teaching this to kids, and those kids keep teaching it to their kids and their kids. It's ridiculous. I got this house. The Lord, he do what he do, won't he do it? He gave me this mansion. Meanwhile, around the corner and down the street, there's a kid, a teenager that's homeless. It's homeless. That could be a much better person than I am. But won't he do it? He is good all the time when it refers to you and something that benefited you. But when things don't go your way, it's the other way. Oh, I let the Satan creep in. Christianity gives you the capability of blaming all the good things that happen on this magic guy with a wand. And I do mean a man. You guys keep calling him a man. Him, he, him. There is no such thing as a gender of a god. Doesn't exist. The universe is based off of yin and yang, light and dark. The universe is based off of good and evil. It's based off of that scale. And that means that the energy and the frequency that's creating everything we see in this realm, the divine energy itself, is also a frequency that has high frequencies and low frequencies built into it. It's a range. And so God is actually a frequency that you tune into. It's not a him or a he that everybody keep running around with. And I can't stand it when I hear women keep calling God a man. It's already bad enough that we've already subjugated you. You couldn't even walk into a church, first of all. That just happened recently. You can walk into a church. You would be stoned to death if you walked into a temple or a church back in the day. Okay? You just got a little bit of rights recently. You got to vote and things like that. That's not too long ago. And then right away, you're indoctrinated into still calling on God as a man, knowing that all life comes from a womb. A lot of people have heard about Enoch. As a matter of fact, he's revered in the biblical text, but his actual book was left out of the Bible. This is Enoch, the book of Enoch. I actually have a couple of versions of the book of Enoch, just because some add a little bit more of a compendium to the information, right? So, and I have a third one somewhere up here. I got, I don't know, hundreds of books in this house, maybe 1,000 plus. Some in the closet in cases that I haven't even unpacked yet. But the book of Enoch is very interesting because in the book of Enoch, he's talking about beings that came down from the heavens. And these beings were flesh and blood people. And not only were they flesh and blood people, but they interacted with humans and they taught us how to make weapons of war to attack one another. Not only did they teach us how to make weapons of war, they went to war with us. They went to battle. They had to put on protection. What type of angel do you know that has to put on protection against getting cut? So these were people, flesh and blood people like me and you, just a little bit more advanced technologically, from another place, but still our cousins in a way, because we look like them and they look us. They were distinguishable by the shapes of their heads. That's what really distinguished them, according to some of these texts. But the book of Enoch was omitted and not put into the canonized Bible because he's talking about aliens interacting with people. Period, point blank. There's no way to get around it. As a matter of fact, Enoch had an appointed time with these beings where he would be taken into space. And it was an appointed time. He wasn't abducted. He wasn't stolen away. He wasn't such a good person and worshiper that he was whisked away. It was an appointed time, and he even gave his records of his business and everything to his sons to hold. When the day came, he was taken into the vehicle and taken up into space. He even describes the Earth's shape and color as he's taken up into space. And then he's brought back at a later time. So he wasn't taken away permanently and forever. He did come back. All right. So pretty interesting stuff. A lot of them talk about human beings being extremely wise in the very beginning. For example, you have the myth of Adapa, which talks about the fact that Ea Enki tells Adapa, who's Adam, tells him that he was created even wiser than the Anunnaki, that there's a hidden code inside of us. And in that hidden code, once we tap into it, we become wiser, we become better, we can even advance past and beyond where these Anunnaki beings were. And for that, Enlil, his brother, was completely enraged when he found out what was going on, what Enki had done. He was completely enraged, and it really pissed him off. So you have to understand that there's a lot of these texts are a lot of the information that made it into this book right here come from ancient text. Even in, some people say, well, what about the New Testament? Well, even in the New Testament, there are places in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablet, where I distinctly go through and make the comparisons between the Old Testament and also, the New Testament. And it really breaks it down in a way where you can see everywhere where Jesus is actually speaking, his words actually come from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which are 36,000 years old. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? Now, why would there be that similarity in information and context? Why would his teachings be extremely similar to the teachings of Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, who ruled over the land of Kem for 14,000 years, around 56,000 BC? Why would that be? Okay. Well, the reason why that would be is simply because if you have the Gospel of the Holy 12, which is also missing from the Bible, if you have the Gospel of the Holy 12, you discover that when Jesus was 12 years old, he disappears from the Bible, and he's in this text. And where he goes is he goes to Egypt. He goes to Egypt for what? To study the Egyptian mysteries. Who invented the first Egyptian mystery school? Or it really was called the Kemetic Mysteries. Who developed that? They were developed by Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. So where did Jesus go? Really, his name was not Jesus. His name was Yeshua. Jesus is actually not a real name. But where did Yeshua go? Yeshua went to the land of Kem to learn, and he became an adept initiate to learn the Egyptian mysteries, or the Kemetic mysteries. And in there, he learned all of the teachings that are in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and beyond. So when he's speaking in the New Testament, the reason why a lot of what he's saying is matching the Emerald Tablets is because that's where it came from. Just like when Yeshua went to class at the mystery schools. That's why what he's saying here is extremely similar to what's being said in the biblical, in the Emerald Tablets. What he's saying in the Bible is extremely similar to what's being said in the Emerald Tablets. So I cover that. There's quite a few verses in here that I go side by side that you can read in my book, where I show you the biblical verse, and then I show you where Jesus is speaking, or Yeshua, then I show you the Emerald Tablets verse, and you go, oh, this is saying the same thing. But again, which came first, the chicken or the egg? One text is tens of thousands of years older than the other. And so what he's doing is he's, the people who wrote the Bible were the Phoenicians. Who were the Phoenicians? The Phoenicians were followers of who? This guy, The people that wrote the text on the parchment papers and the cylinder scrolls and all that stuff that make up the Bible, because the Bible wasn't written like from, I mean, just write a Bible from page 1 to page whatever. People were copying tablets and turning them into, writing them on paper and different types of parchments and storing them in vases and studying them in caves and so forth, right? And so basically people over the years had uncovered some of these things in these different caves and locations around the Middle East and began to put them together and create this, what we call a Bible. The Bible wasn't written by somebody standing there right next to somebody who was supposedly speaking and writing on everything that was going on. In other words, the Bible was not written in real time. Matter of fact, the disciples, they were actually illiterate men. They couldn't even read or write, okay? They couldn't even read or write. So that answers a lot of questions for you there. The Bible was written thousands of years after these people died. Matter of fact, it wasn't starting to be put together until 100 AD to 900 AD. That's the time frame that the biblical text was extracted, discovered from caves and so forth, and cultivated into what we call the canonized Bible. This Bible has good information in it. There's good information in that book. There's actually great information in the book. You have to know how to discern what's good and what's actually not good. There's things in there that will make you think it's okay to commit specific types of crimes against other people because it's being ordered by God, when in reality, it's not God. See, until you get some of these texts that I've got here in these books and learn how to read cuneiform and learn how to, my Aramaic book is upstairs, convert some of this text backwards into Aramaic and start reading that, you start finding out what areas are actually not being prudent for mankind to follow. So just like in anything, you have to have discernment, right? I can take this book and I can handpick verses. I can curate information out of this book. I can handpick verses that if you listen to them, if you read them, if you study them, and if you actually act on them, you can actually get a good result, okay? That's why I read everything. That's why I study. I'm a student of everything. Now, there's information in here that's not so good. Like in the book of Deuteronomy, it okays things like rape. It okays things like abduction, right? False imprisonment. All those things are in there. Why? Because God is commanding people to actually do these things to other people. But it's not actually the creator of the universe that's speaking in the book of Deuteronomy. When you translate the book of Deuteronomy into its original text, you find out that it's gods with an S, plural, and those gods end up not being gods at all. They end up being flesh and blood people. That's why you have to learn Sumerian. They come out of Sumeria, and they're called the Anunnaki, or in the Bible, they're called the Anak. In our eyes, we were grasshoppers in their sight. That's what it says in the Bible. These people were huge people as well. But they were very intelligent and technologically advanced people. They ruled over humans in certain regions of the planet, and they had humans fighting each other. You got the worship gene. You want to worship something on the outside. Everybody's focusing on the outside, outside, outside. Nobody's focusing on the inside. That's where the big problem arises. When you're looking external for external salvation, I guarantee you will never find it. You will think you found it. You will convince yourself that you found external salvation, but in true reality, you only tricked yourself. The only way to receive a salvation is to go within. And you don't need any exterior source to forgive you and all this kind of stuff. You can forgive yourself. Matter of fact, until you forgive yourself, you're never going to be forgiven. Until you forgive I don't care if you hurt somebody, you did something to somebody, and then you apologize to them and they say, I forgive you. You're still not forgiven. Your conscience is still not fully satisfied until you actually look at your shadow face to face and say, man, I screwed this up bad. You know what? I apologize to them. I try to make everything right. And now all I can do is move forward. And you know what? I forgive myself. I have to learn from it. What can I learn from this? How can I become a better person from this experience? What can I glean from this mistake that I made? And once you understand that, and once you accept that, and once you understand how to change from that, you've now rewritten your DNA. You've just been born again. Yeah, that's it. There's no magic sky daddy out there coming down to hit you with a wand and say, oh, all your sins are forgiven. Like I said last week, the biggest problem with this forgiven sin thing is it gives people a way to escape taking full ownership of their screw-ups. In other words, I can go out here and I can do something to somebody. I can blow somebody away. And then I can just go home and say, oh, please forgive me. And then the next thing you know, I'm good to go again. That's how they think it works. See, there's a big problem with that. That's actually doesn't work. You're fooling yourself. And so people use it as a crutch. Oh, I screwed up today. Oh, please forgive me. And then, I got a clean slate. That's what they tell you in church. Doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. Even if you read this book, this book doesn't even say it works that way. The Bible doesn't even say it works that way. And so what you have to do is you have to understand that you need to understand what you did. You need to face what you did, try to make atonement for what you did. And then after you've done all of that, forgive yourself and move on. That's forgiveness. Being born again is when you rise to a higher level of consciousness and you can look back on your previous level that you were at and go, wow, man, I came up here. I'm up here now. I moved up a notch. You were born again in a higher level of consciousness. Getting splashed in water and dumped in the ocean and all that stuff, waste of time. Means nothing. Waste of time. Taking a brand new baby and splashing water all over them, waste of time. Means nothing. Means absolutely nothing. Does nothing. It just gets you wet and then you need a towel. Being born again has to do with growing consciously. Every time you move up another notch, you're born again, and you'll be born again many times in the same lifetime. These are the secrets that the Anunnaki didn't want us to understand and know. They wanted us to go through them for everything so that we can continue to worship them and do the work for them. That's what it was all about. It's all about labor and slavery. And if you don't believe me, then you got to read the Atrahasis epic. This is where the information is. It's right in here, guys. It's right in here. Part of it made it into the Bible, but they accidentally on purpose left out the part where the 𝗩𝗓𝗓 were getting ready to go to war against Enlil and Enki. This is when the gods fell from heaven to earth, right? In the Bible, it's the angels. They rebelled against God. These 𝗩𝗓𝗓 people, who are Anunnaki, they rebelled against Anu, who was known as the god of his pantheon. He had the original pantheon, and they fell from heaven to earth. They came from Mars to earth. They came from Lammu to Ki. All right, Lammu is Mars, Ki is earth. Why'd they come here? They were on Mars doing a lot of labor. They were mining Mars for resources. They came here to go to battle against Enki and Enlil. Why did they rebel against Anu and his sons? Because according to the text, they were being forced to do labor as if they were slaves, and they weren't supposed to be slaves. They were volunteers, and they labored for a couple 100,000 years. I think it was 250,000 years they labored without the use of any human assistance whatsoever. And then they got to the point where they said, you know what? Our needs aren't being met. Our demands aren't being met. We're going to go to war. They came and they encircled the campus of Enki and Enlil in a place in Africa called Adam's Calendar. Adam's Calendar still exists today. Matter of fact, I was supposed to go there in 2020, but you know what happened there. I'll probably get there in 2023. I won't get there this summer. With Michael Tellinger has a museum right next to Adam's Calendar, and he's going to give me the tour of Adam's Calendar. Adam's Calendar is important because it's the oldest known gold mine discovered on Earth in Africa, and the organic material at the mine shows that it dates back to 200,000 years, exactly at the time I said about the worship gene, and exactly at the time that these people decided to go to war at Adam's Calendar against Enki and Enlil and Anu. Interesting that it all merges together, all right? And then they took women. After they came to an agreement first that they would genetically modify the existing hominid on the planet, adding their essence to it, which means, some type of modification in some way, and make it do the labor. Once that was agreed upon, they said, okay, we're getting out of here now. We're not going to go to war today, but what we are going to do is we're going to take some of these women. And that's when the sons of God, which was the Ijiji, because they were all under Anu, made it with the daughters of men, and they gave birth to the Nephilim. Okay? All this is in the text, guys. This is all in the text. The Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. The Atrahasis epic. This is all in there. All this stuff is in there. The Sumerian tablets in the British Museum, the one where Isis gives birth to the Adamu. There were already a lot of people on the planet. Don't believe this thing about Adam and Eve were the first 2 people, and from Adam and Eve, you got 8 billion people on the planet. That's garbage. In the Bible itself, if you take your time and you actually read the Bible right, you discover that humans were created twice in the beginning. There's 2 humans that are created in the beginning. When you read the Sumerian tablets, you discover the same thing. In the beginning, it elaborates a little bit more. They created people to do the work. When Cain killed Abel and was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, which, by the way, Adam was also kicked out, and you can read the book of Adam, right? That's kept out of the Bible. It's pretty heartbreaking, that story. It'll choke you up. It's pretty heartbreaking. But when you analyze Cain, and he says to Enlil, who's known as Yahweh in the Bible, he says, the people out there will kill me. Well, what people? Well, there was already people out there. He said, matter of fact, he said, I'm gonna put a mark on you. They'll know you, my boy. And when you go out there, you're gonna meet your wife. What wife? This is what began the whole clan of the Canaanites. Most of the Canaanites ended up in Mesoamerica. They ended up halfway around the world. All right, there's a whole nother video I gotta make about that, how they got there. But regardless, so you have the snake that comes into the garden. The snake is knowledge in Egypt, in Chem. It's knowledge and wisdom. What was the apple? The apple was knowledge of self. So Ea-Enki, who actually loved humans, came in and was talking to them in the tablets about who they really were, how powerful they really were. A lot of that makes it into the myth of Adapa. So if you read the myth of Adapa, which I have on one of these, I have so many books in here, but I have the myth of Adapa. That text, which was kept out of the Bible, is it talks about the fact that Ea-Enki was talking to them about how powerful they are, how knowledgeable they are, how incredible they could become. The true potential of mankind is far exceeding them, him himself, and the Anunnaki. And that was the knowledge that he gave them. That's why they put on clothes. They were like, man, we gods, man. I hear running around like animals naked. And that's when Enlil came back and got pissed off. That's in the Bible known as Yahweh, right? You call him God. And he was like, oh man, my brother did this. I'm gonna call him the devil. And I'm gonna tell everybody, don't talk to him because he's evil. When Enlil was actually the evil one. As a matter of fact, when you read the tablets, you find out that this guy, Enlil, was killing people like you wouldn't believe. He was killing humans like it was like, if you would wake up and there was too much noise outside, he would order the guards to just go kill off people. And that's why I think that the Nag Hammadi got it right. When you read the Gnostic text in here, you realize that they got it right in a lot of ways. Not always, but in a lot of ways. Because what they realized was that this book right here is orchestrated by people. Actually, the person that wrote the KJV, King James Version, he's a Satanist. So King James is actually a Satanist. Actually, his Satanist book did better than this book. So, but what these people realized way before that guy was even born was that this book is orchestrated in a way, the information is orchestrated in a way that you're actually following the same evil that you're running from. And the true path to enlightenment and ascension is through spirituality. If the devil is a super genius, right? Satan, the devil, is this IQ of 2,000. He's not even an angel. He's a cherubim. He can create things. He has everything he can do everything that God can do, just about. All right. He was the right hand and everything, all this good stuff, and he can whisper in the ears of millions of people. And he's got all this power. I said to that guy who was trying to convert me, he said to me, I asked him, I said, do you think that that this Satan, the devil, is going to follow every word in this book that was written and edited by a human being to his own destruction? And he said, yeah. I said, no. Don't you think it's more likely that that same entity orchestrated this book in a way that would lead you to your destruction? That's what the 𝗩𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗧 believes. That's what the Gnostics believe. The Gnostics. And I think they're right. I think that it's been flipped. I think that people that have been chasing after the devil this entire time, because the references of the Elohim and and Yahweh and so forth in the Bible are actually these Anunnaki people, not the creator of the universe. Not even close. These are flesh and blood people. Now, is there a creator of the universe? I actually believe that there is. I believe that there's a creator of the universe. Why? Quantum physics proves it. We're living in a creation. There's no way to get around that we're living in a creation. I believe that wholeheartedly. What I'm trying to tell you is a lot of us on this planet have been chasing after the wrong source of creation, has actually been chasing after slave masters. And they have successfully enslaved mankind for a very, very long time. You got to read this book, The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. The Gods of Eden by William Bramley is based on Sumerian tablets. That's why I like this book. It's not based on opinion. It's not based on conjecture. It's based on the tablets. And we find that the mental and financial enslavement go all the way back thousands of years. In this book, he actually reveals the origin of inflation. The origin of inflation is even in here. You find that they set up this political structure for us with this bicameral Congress, which is still operating today. And they themselves had a whole different system that they went on, that they ruled under, this number system that they had. They had a system of numbers, and you ruled by your order of your hierarchy, and the totem pole was based on your number. But they gave us this polytrick system. I call it polytricks, right? That's what they gave us, the polytrick system, to keep us embroiled in foolishness. At the end of the last pyramid war that was started by Amen-Ra, also known as Marduk. And where can you find Marduk? You can find him right in here. Where else can you find Marduk? You can find him right in here. You can find him right in here. You can find him in the Torah. You can find him, which is upstairs. You can find him in the Jewish American Library. He's everywhere. Amen-Ra is when you say amen, you're giving thanks to him. He's the one that ordered it. He ordered that everyone give him thanks at the end of every prayer. And so when you say thank you, you're saying thanks to one of the most evil people of all time, who created two wars, and the wars over the two things. One was because he didn't want people worshiping other gods. He said, I'm a jealous God, and there'll be no other God but me. That made it into the Bible, right? That's a famous biblical text, but that was said thousands of years prior by Marduk. And then the other reason he started a war is because he wanted to take over kingship of the world ahead of his processionary period. These Anunnaki pantheon, they ruled based on precession of the equinoxes. And so he's the precession of Pisces, which we're still in Pisces right now. It's about to end. We're going into the age of Aquarius. And a lot of people don't know that fish that you see on the back of people's cars, they think there's for Jesus. It actually represents Pisces, and it represents Marduk, Amen-Ra. They don't realize that. But anyway, he started a war because he wanted to take over early ahead of his processional period. And that war is one of the reasons why the sands of Egypt, the sand and the buildings in Mohenjo-Daro and in the Indus Valley are all now turned to glass. It was a battle using some type of weapon, and I talk about this in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. I've talked about it before in several lectures. They used the Brahma weapon, the Brahmahada weapon. These weapons were real weapons that they used that can heat the sand to 3,000 plus degrees, turning it to sand, turning buildings to sand, turning people to piles of dust. We have an account in the Bible of that happening, right? Where the woman turned around and turned into a pillar of salt. Is it really salt? It's really ash. And what it is, it's representing that weapon that came down on that city. That was a dropped weapon. Make no mistake about it. And it was planned to be dropped, and it was known ahead of time, the coordinates and even the time that it was going to drop. And these are talked about in these other texts like the Mahabharata. They openly talk about these weapons. There's a weapon in here that can destroy a man on 3 worlds. They have weapons that can destroy planets in these texts. Do you think these people were sitting around 10,000 years ago? Let me write a fictional story about a weapon the size of a planet that can destroy planets. No, didn't happen like that. These people only wrote down things that were important. They didn't have time to be writing play. Just surviving on a daily basis was hard enough a lot of times. They wrote down important things. And so the Anunnaki, to answer the question, some left from the war. And the second part is some didn't leave. Some are still here. And their bloodlines most likely are still here. Like, for example, I believe that Yeshua is a demigod, part human, part Anunnaki. And the reason why is because when you read the Apocrypha text, you find out that his grandmother, Mary's mother, was also a virgin birth. How do you get a virgin birth right now in today's age? You get a virgin birth by in vitro fertilization. And I believe that either Enki or maybe even Enlil, one of those two, are the father. And I think it's in vitro fertilization. And I believe that even the Merovingian bloodline still exists today, which would be the bloodline of Jesus, because they found the book of Jesus's wife, which is at the seminary at Harvard in Boston. I had it in my hands in 2018. And so he never got crucified. That story is a fabrication of Rome. Never happened. If you read the Sinai Bible, which predates the King James Bible, Jesus never got crucified. Matter of fact, he most likely got married, had kids, and that bloodline is still on the planet today. The bloodline of Enlil, a bloodline of Enki, these people, they're still walking on the planet till this very day. When you trace back, when you go to the Sumerian kings list, and you analyze the names on that list, and you then fast forward in time to where you see it after the flood, where kingship was handed over to man, and they were mating with a human to create a demigod known as a pharaoh that would be the liaison between humans and the gods. And then the pharaoh is bloodline. Then the pharaohs would then, give birth, and that bloodline would maintain until the Egyptian dynasties were overthrown for the 7th time, and they started migrating across Arabia up into Europe. This is why when you go to England, you go to the palace, right, where the queen is, you're going to see all Egyptian motif there. And their own words, they said, we have the right to rule over mankind. They believe it's because of their bloodline. It traces all the way back to the Sumerian kings. Faintly by now, obviously, but their concept and the idea is there that they're in some way related to these people. And so they believe that they have the right to rule over the planet in the way that they do. All right. So, and the answer is that they're gone, but through bloodlines, a lot of them are still here. There's 2 types of blood types, RH and RH negative and RH positive. Wonder what that means. Well, Grace, I have RH negative, and so did my mom. It's kind of a rare blood type. And my mom almost died having my brother. She started hemorrhaging, and they couldn't get it because only 15% of the world have that blood type. So it's pretty interesting. There's still a lot of research being done on it. It's a rare blood type. There's a blood plasma bank here in my city that I go to every 3 months and donate my own blood in case something happens to me. I can get blood for transfusion. If I'm out of the country or I'm gone somewhere, I'm in trouble. A lot of the scientists, they say the RH is a rare blood type, and they call it alien blood, but I don't know if they're calling it alien because of aliens, but they're just saying that it's not something in the normal blood pool. But it's pretty interesting. It does have some benefits, but it also has downfalls, obviously. One of the benefits of this blood type, and AIDS virus doesn't bind to the cell. So it's very difficult to get. They found that, through studies, that people with that blood type, they just don't get AIDS, things like that. But, like I said, it has its positives, but it also has its negatives as well, So it definitely is interesting. It could be a throwback from these Anunnaki people. The information that they were born into and bred into to believe is faltered. It's not accurate. And once they can come to the realization that the information that they've been believing in their entire lives is actually not 100% true, it's like when you're a drug addict or an alcoholic. The only way to overcome it is you have to admit that you have a problem. So until these people actually fully face the fact that what they've been born into is not actually real, where it has a lot of holes in it, let's say, and start doing research, then and only then will they begin to rewrite their DNA. So, DNA can be rewritten, it can be changed, it can be altered. We know this through simple experiments. If you speak positive affirmations out loud to where you can actually hear your voice 3 times a day for 21 days, your DNA will be rewritten because of that. We know this in science fact, not fiction. The same thing for these people. When they come to the realization that they need to dig a little bit deeper, and then they start buying books, and then on their own volition, start doing the research and start doing their own studying. There's one thing that's accurate in this Bible. It says, study to show thyself approved. And I agree with that 1000%. Study to show thyself approved. When they begin to do the studying and all the research, and they start to read and analyze all this text, right? And they go, oh man, this is not what I thought it was. And the realization hits them, there's a whole lot more that they can learn. And they need to understand that what they were taught is not 100% accurate. There's more. It's even more grander than what this story is. What this story is actually nothing. There's even a bigger story than this. And so instead of being intimidated by the fact that this book is not accurate and there's a lot of misinformation in it, be more excited that it's even more grand than what they even thought. And there's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more to understand. The universe is incredible. Our connection to the stars and other beings is incredible. There's a whole nother reality going on behind this reality. And there's a whole nother path to ascension that you didn't even know existed. And that's when they'll begin to rewrite that worship gene and change it and go start to look within instead of looking outside. The book of Revelations is a very interesting book. It's this end time preaching that has allowed a lot of preachers to make a lot of money and has allowed them to build these mega churches and everything else and lure a lot of people in. And it's always the end times. But I tell you, there is no end time right now. We're not even close to an end time right now. And the reason why I say that is there has been far more darker periods and eras in time on this planet than we are in right now. As dark and as bad as it looks right now, there's been times that are far worse than this. We're actually living in a great time, to be honest with you. Now, does it mean that everybody's having a good old time around the planet? No. I'm talking about overall, as a percentage base. If you go back, we're talking about the Inquisitions. We're talking about the Black Plague, the bubonic plague, all these things that almost wiped out humanity. Just a lot of eras gone back. The American Holocaust, you probably don't even know about that one, right? 111 million indigenous natives murdered and slaughtered in the Americas over the course of, I think it was 70 years. 111 million, almost killed to extinction, these people, right? So we're not even close to the end times. The end times would have happened all the way back then, when 80 million were getting killed, when 111 million were getting killed, when the bubonic plague was wiping out the planet, when the Black Plague was wiping out the planet. So we're talking about a writing that is trying to lash out at the people of that era, and also trying to convince people to join a cause, really, and that there will be this, and to give people this solace and peace that the trauma and the drama and the issues that they're going through right now will be rewarded greatly, but in true reality, it still was relying on external aid, external sources, external help, external assistance, which just is not the case. It was written for a time in that era, but it has no application to us whatsoever right now. One thing that's interesting in that book, if you read the book of Revelation, you find out that it's talking about reincarnation and the fact that you come back as an actual person with a name, with a new name and everything else, and a new body. It doesn't say you're going to be this etherical being of light floating in dimensions. It doesn't say you're going to be in higher dimensions floating around and without a body. No, it says you're going to come back with a new body and a new name. it almost kind of really talks about having a breakaway civilization on another planet. You know, you get taken to a new planet and you put inside this new city being built, right? This new Jerusalem and all this kind of stuff. So it's pretty interesting far out stuff. But I don't think there's any end times coming anytime soon. I don't think we're even close to an end time, in my personal opinion. The words of Thoth in the Emerald Tablets compared to the words of Jesus, or accurately known as Yeshua in the modern day Bible, right? So we're going to compare the words of Thoth from ancient times to the words of not only Jesus, but even a couple of his disciples as well. And we're going to see if there's a correlation between what's been said, what's been written in the biblical account versus what was etched and written by this man himself, Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, because he actually authored his own tablet. He did not use a scribe for the Emerald Tablets with an S plural. He wrote that one himself. So his words from 36,000 years ago versus the biblical words, which were written between 100 AD to 900 AD, more modern times. As a matter of fact, when people try to tell me that I'm into this new age stuff, I go, no, actually, you're in the new age. I'm in the old age. Like the stuff that I research is like deep antiquity, super ancient material. And most of the religions of the world cropped up and popped up only in the, from 1 AD on forward. So, of course, you have some of the ancient religions, which I don't even call them religions, like Taoism and Buddhism. They're not really per se religions. I'm talking about things that can literally turn you into a zealot, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, things like that. Those are New Age religions, Jehovah's Witness and all these things. They're all fairly new. They just popped up on the scene. They didn't exist in ancient times. They're all fairly new. Actually, a lot of them have very, very recent accounts, if you talk about the Latter-day Saints and so forth, right? And Thoth said, "But in a time yet unborn, I will rise again, mighty and potent, requiring an accounting of those left behind me." Another interesting statement made by Thoth many thousands of years before Jesus tells his disciples that he will rise again, and that's in Mark 9:31. And Thoth said, "Then beware, O men of Chem." He's talking to the people of Egypt, but before it was Egypt, the real name is the land of Chem. "If ye have falsely betrayed my teaching, for I shall cast ye down from your high estate into the darkness of the caves where hence ye came. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north, to the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon you. Remember and heed my words, for surely I will return again and require of thee that which ye guard. Even from beyond time and from beyond death I will return, rewarding or punishing as ye have requited your trust." In the biblical text of John 14:20, Jesus declares to his followers, "I go away and come again unto you. Tell no one the Son of Man has risen again." Thoth says, "For surely I will come again, betray not my secrets." You see, these things are very, very similar. So in one way you have Thoth saying, listen, I'm teaching you guys some serious knowledge, some serious information, and I want you guys to not only understand it, digest it, and practice it, but also utilize it and live it. In other words, this is a lifestyle that he was teaching the people, not just some information for them to hear in one ear and out the other. He was trying to teach them a lifestyle, an ascension lifestyle. And what he's saying is, when I come back, because this guy literally leaves and comes back every so many hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. When I come back, if you guys fell off, I'm just going to cast you down. In other words, I'm going to destroy what you've built. I'm going to tear down your ideologies and rebuild you again from scratch. And then in the biblical account, you have Jesus virtually saying the same things. I'm coming again, and when I come back, there's going to be an accounting. There's going to be accounting for the stuff that I taught you if you're living it, if you're living in that lifestyle, have you obtained that lifestyle of ascension, that ascension knowledge lifestyle? And if you haven't, well, you're going to have an accounting to pay, you know? It's the same exact story. But the only thing is, the biblical account was written from 100 AD to 900 AD. So we know that the emerald tablets are super ancient. So what we're finding out here is that a lot of the stuff that comes in the New Testament is coming from, that is written in the New Testament, is coming from the emerald tablets, right? Let's take a look at it a little bit more. The Bible teaches us of a judgment day. Everyone, the still living and the resurrected dead, will face God's judgment. Even those who profess Christianity will find judgment through the deeds they have done in life, according to Matthew 7:21 through 23 and 2 Corinthians 5:10. Those who have lived righteous lives will be granted eternal life. Those who have lived evil lives will be condemned to eternal punishment. This record appears in several biblical passages, including Matthew 5:29 through 30, 25, 31, chapter 25, 31 through 46, and Mark 9:43 through 48. Again, these statements are very reminiscent of the same things stated by Thoth over 36,000 years ago. There's going to be an accounting. I'm going to hold you accountable for what you have learned and what you have done. Have you done good with the knowledge and you sustained that, or have you failed my trust? And if you have failed my trust, there's going to be an accounting. You see it replicated over and over again. It's the same exact information, the same exact statement. Did Jesus Christ, who is also referred to as Yeshua, teach reincarnation? Now, this is a big topic here that a lot of Christians don't want to even dig into. The fact that Jesus, his teaching was primarily about reincarnation, not about death and that's it and it's final, and then some kind of magical way you appear in the afterlife. Actually, that's not even what they teach. So, me being a student of Christianity and the Bible and many other religions as well, this is the actual teaching that you're taught in that faith. So, if you're living the Christian lifestyle and you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, then all your sins are going to be forgiven, and you have a chance to be, raptured up into this heavenly paradise. Now, there's a little bit of a glitch with that. In some accounts, you don't get raptured until the second coming of Christ. And so the people that they call them the saints that have died in Christ, they're still in this spiritual abyss, where they can't go up or down. They're kind of stuck in this halfway realm. And they've been there for now thousands of years, literally. And still waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for this magical second coming, of which they will be magically raptured up into heaven. So I don't know. When you analyze some of the stuff that's written, you can clearly see when a man's hand and a man's consciousness is guiding some of the information and altering it and changing it to their own preference. And the fact that there's evidence of this is William James Darby, who actually added the rapture to the Bible as a footnote, I believe in 1835, and which much later became part of doctrine as pastors realized that, hey, we can utilize this to gain more followers to the faith. Okay, we give them the fear factor, but if they really, really, really try hard and they really give their life to this thing, and of course, and all their money, then they have a chance to get raptured away and not face everlasting damnation. You see? It's all about control of people. Okay, that's what it's all about. It's all about the control of people. Thank you, Konifa, for the donation. It's all about the control of people. So let's go back in again. So did Jesus teach reincarnation? Additionally, reincarnation appears in the Old Testament. Read the last words of the Old Testament in the book of Malachi. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Malachi 4, 5-6. Here is God speaking through Malachi. He was a famous prophet often quoted by great leaders throughout history, including U.S. presidents, Donald Trump, and actually saying that Elijah is going to come again. Now we find Jesus making the same statement in the book of Matthew. Jesus says, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist, notwithstanding that he is least in the kingdom of heaven and is greater than he. Matthew 11:11. What they're saying is that these people that die are coming back. It's pretty interesting. Then he says, and if he will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. Matthew 11-14, meaning his coming was prophesied. Therefore, Jesus said, he came, he was beheaded, they did with him what they would, and so they will do the same to me. They predict their comings and their deaths and their returns again, which is pretty interesting. And it's the same thing that Thoth says happens in the Emerald Tablets. Scriptures concerning the coming again of Elijah flow so prominently throughout the Bible that anyone can accept the fact that they appear within the context of an already established canon. If reincarnation is so important, why is it not taught in the West? Obviously, this guy dies and he comes back again. And it's talked about over and over and over again, the fact that now he's not coming back again in the spirit, he's coming back in the flesh. There's even more places, even in Revelations, that it talks about getting a new name and a new body and coming back again in a physical body. Not in a spiritual body, it's in the book of Revelation, in a physical body with a new name. You come back, you're born again, you get a brand new body and a brand new name. And Thoth said, great were my people in the ancient days, great beyond the conception of the little people now around me. Knowing the wisdom of old, seeking far within the heart of infinity, knowledge that belonged to the earth's youth. Wise were we with the wisdom of the children of light who dwelt among us. Strong were we with the power drawn from the eternal fire. In Matthew 3:11, John the Baptist says, I baptize you with water, he shall baptize you with fire. It's the same thing. And then Thoth said, and all of these, the greatest among the children of men was my father, thought me, keeper of the great temple, link between the child of light. Thought me is a Sumerian god Enki. Also, John 12:36 records the words of Jesus, believe in the light that you may be the children of light. It's the same statement. It's the same exact statement, guys. It's the same exact statement. Thoth says, thought me, the keeper of the great temple, link between the children of the light. And then John says, 12:36, believe in the light that you may be the children of light. Same thing. This New Testament context is coming directly from the Emerald Tablets. And Thoth said, who dwelt within the temple of the races of men who inhabited the 10 islands, mouthpiece after the 3 of the dweller of Unal, speaking to the kings with the voice that must be obeyed. Grew I there from a child into manhood, being taught by my father the elder mysteries, until the time grew within the fire of wisdom, until it burst into a consuming flame. Thoth is literally talking about the fact that he's already gone into this mystery school. He's now part of this mystery school, these teachings by the ancient elders that are literally enlightening him and giving him the knowledge and the wisdom that he needs to last for millennia, and then teach to people that will then take a fractal of that knowledge and it will last for millennia. And what's interesting is when you look at the Gospel of the Holy 12, which is a little unknown scripture where it talks about Jesus going to Egypt and actually basically attending the Egyptian history schools. What do you think he was learning? He was learning this. The founder of the mystery schools, Thoth, he was learning directly from him. He was learning these same exact words and these same exact principles and ideologies in which he was regurgitating, literally, to the people of his era and of his time, because I do believe that he was a man that really walked, because I've been to the house that he lived in Egypt. Okay, it's a real place. He was really there. He actually lived there. It's a shrine now. You can go there. Whoever's going to Egypt with me in October, there's only 6 spots left for that trip. That trip sold out so fast. But whoever's going with me, we're going to the house where he actually lived when he disappeared out of the modern canonized Bible and was actually living in Egypt, learning the Egyptian mysteries before he went to Tibet to learn Reiki and all the other type of stuff there, healing and energy healing and Qigong, and then going down into India and learning the mystic arts. That's what you read when you start. That's what you find out when you start reading a lot of these texts. The truth, a lot of information that's missing. Thoth has a rich tradition to prepare his life as the ultimate servant of all of Atlantis. His father, Thothme, is identifiable with Enki, as well as the dweller. So the dweller and Enki and Thothme are the same person, who taught him the elder mysteries, the secret mysteries. The knowledge he acquired at this level of wisdom is so overwhelming that it's like an all-consuming fire, much like many religions today speak of being consumed by the fire of God, or the unquenchable fire of the Holy Spirit. These ideologies and these archetypes are all going back to the original teachings of Thoth from the Emerald Tablets. And Thoth said, "Naught desired I but the attainment of wisdom, until on a great day the command came from the dweller of the temple that I be brought before him. Few there were among the children of men who had looked upon the mighty face and lived. For not as the sons of men are the children of light when they are the incarnate of a physical body. Chosen was I from the sons of men, taught by the dweller so that his purposes might be fulfilled." And you look at Matthew 24:30 states, "And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with the power and great glory." Thoth is about to come into his glory. Okay? You have to understand these sayings, Son of Man. What's the first thing that Thoth said when he descended on the land of Kem? In the beginning of the Emerald Tablets, he's sent by his father Enki to the land of Kem because the great flood had happened and the water was receding and the great temples were coming up out of the mud. Civilization had been completely destroyed, and his mission was to go there and help bring them back up to a higher level of civilization. That was his mission, according to the tablets. He descends in his ship, he opens the door, and what happens? They come to attack him with cudgels and spears, according to Thoth. And he holds up his staff and he sends out a ray of vibration, stopping them still a stone in the mountain. He actually freezes them with some kind of stun gun weapon, right? It doesn't kill them, it just stops them from attacking. Which in my book, I talk about the fact that we have something called the active denial system in the military. It does the same exact thing. And he's there to teach them this wisdom and this knowledge and bring them back up to a higher level of civilization. And, he's there to fulfill his mission, which is to be the bringer of knowledge. And he does this. He does this again in the land of Kem. The land of Kem is where we get chemistry and alchemy. It all comes out of the land of Kem. That's where chemistry and alchemy originate from. And then from there, it spread around the world, right? After the Great Flood. And it's really interesting that we're talking about the Son of Man. Once Thoth freezes these people with this stunning ray, and then he releases them and he goes over to them and he shows them his magic science, in other words, his advanced technology. And they start to grovel at his feet because now they think he's really a god. And he tells them, no, don't do that. I'm not a god. He says, what did he say? I'm the son of Atlantis. He refers to himself as a son of Atlantis and always, and again, refers to himself as a son of man. Those are his two references. He never says I'm God. He never says I'm here to rule over you. I'm your creator. He doesn't say that. He says I'm a son of Atlantis. And then further down, he says I'm a son of man. He says, I'm the son of man. He never says, I'm the son of God. He never says, I'm your creator of all, or none of that kind of stuff. You see? And so we find very interesting similarities between when Jesus is talking, and he's always referring to himself as the son of man. Pretty interesting. And Thoth said, purposes yet unborn in the womb of time, long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever yet and more wisdom until I do approach the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to 𝗪𝗦𝗕𝗦𝗧, the underworld where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death, receiving my gift, the key of life, that's the Ankh. Free was I of the halls of 𝗪𝗦𝗕𝗦𝗧, bound not by death of the circle of life. He had conquered death. Thoth is talking about the fact that he had literally been given the key of life, which is the Ankh, but not just any old Ankh. He was given a jet pillar Ankh, and he's able to walk through the gates, the stargates. What's interesting though is the fact that he's talking about being free from death. He had now conquered death. He now has the capability to transfer his consciousness into new avatar bodies, in which further in the tablets, he talks about the fact that he's got these halls of 𝗪𝗦𝗕𝗦𝗧 where he has these rejuvenation chambers, and he would have his bodies in these chambers, and he would transfer from body to body, walk amongst man, but unlike a man, he says. In other words, he's not stealing people's bodies. He's walking amongst men, but unlike a man. In other words, he's in a sleeve. He understands the concept of being in that sleeve. Whereas we're in a sleeve, and we think the sleeve is it's us. This is just the mode of transportation to a third dimension. It's not really us at all. You need to see this. And Thoth said, he who encouraged would dare the dark realms, let him be purified first and long fasting. Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber. He's talking about the sarcophagus, or really the stone box, is inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. It's not for death. It's not for a dead pharaoh. There's another purpose to that. Let him be purified by long fasting. Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber. Then reveal I to him the great mysteries. So if you lay in that stone box inside of the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, and you take a mallet and you hit that granite coffer on the outside with the mallet, you get this amazing 2-to-1 resonance throughout the entire chamber, which creates all of these almost psychedelic experiences. Then I revealed to him the great mysteries. Soon shall he follow to where I shall meet him, because you actually have an out-of-body experience. Even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him. I, Thoth, Lord of wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. Jesus answered him, saying, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. It's the same exact scenario, same exact sentiment, just said slightly in a different way. Fragments and fractals of what he learned in the Egyptian mystery schools that was taught by Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, and what he wrote in his emerald tablets. He was almost quoting this stuff, putting his own slight spin or turn on it, or generalizing it, but this is where he got the information from. This is why this book has done so well, because people, you can go on from page after page after page with this kind of information, and you'll find that there's a lot of correlations between this and the Bible. And you have to, again, ask yourself, which came first, the chicken or the egg? That's what you have to ask yourself. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? And it's pretty deep, because he goes into cymatic frequencies, he goes into all these things. He goes into the mystery of 369 by Nikola Tesla, before Nikola Tesla was born, right? Nikola Tesla most likely learned it from the Emerald Tablets as well himself. So it's just really interesting to me that we have, these correlations. And then again, when you as a person that's religious or that's believing in that faith, they just don't want to research these things. They don't want to look into them. If you tell them that, if you show them this, they're going to tell you that you're worshiping something, Satan, even though you're not worshiping this. This is something that, it's something that brings you knowledge. You go, oh, I got this because this guy did so much amazing work in the ancient past. I want to learn about his wisdom and his knowledge. And if you start looking at things like this and researching things like this, then you're a demon. You're a demon. I've been called demons and all kind of stuff, right? Just the other day, I think it was 2 days ago, some crazy lady started commenting on all my posts and all my videos, all this crazy stuff about you're a demon, you're worshiping Satan and blah, 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 blah. So what happens in religion, these people turn into zealots. If people who are into, Christianity, for example, ever did the full research on Yeshua and got all the apocrypha texts and found out where he was, what he did, what he studied, and what he was really teaching, I think it'd be a huge eye-opener, which is why I do these videos. People need to understand that there's a lot more to the story than what they've been told. Just like, for example, Isis, Osiris, and Horus are the original Trinity, right? That's the original Trinity. And Isis had a baby, basically gave birth to Horus without having sex. So she gave birth to Horus. She had you want to call it a in vitro fertilization, whatever you want to call it, but that's the original setting for the story. And then from there, after getting passed down from generation to generation, it turns into, Jesus, Mary being the virgin birth, giving birth to Jesus as a virgin birth, and then having a Holy Trinity, which is based on, the Holy Ghost and all these things. But it's not that. That's a copy from ancient Egypt. It originated from ancient Egypt. I don't like to study. That's why I made a book like this where you can go read verse by verse, and you can break down tablet verses versus biblical verses, and you can kind of see where a lot of the information really truly originated from. And we have to come to a point where if you're so confident in your religion, well, then challenge it. Not challenge your creator, because that's kind of ignorant, but I'm saying challenge the information you've been taught. Say, hey, if there was only Adam and Eve, then how did Cain find a wife when he got kicked out of the garden? Questions like that. Obviously, there were people on the planet. Why would God tell him that when you go out there, you're going to find a wife and I'll put a mark on your head so the people don't kill you? What people? Questions like that. When you dig into a lot of the ancient texts, especially the Sumerian texts, because it originates in Mesopotamia, and you're researching the Tigris River and Euphrates River, and you're researching that entire region, and you're looking at the Red Sea and all of this. And then I start to make some correlations between some Sumerian stories and what happened with Moses, and I'm like, this is pretty interesting. So what I did was I took the text and I back converted it down several different languages to get more to the source language. And you find that the biblical version is actually a mistranslation. Moses never crossed the Red Sea. And they're still teaching this in Bibles and Bible study and in churches today. Moses never crossed the Red Sea. He crossed the Sea of Reeds. Now, it's nearby the Red Sea. It's a much smaller sea and actually a little bit easier to cross. I'm not taking anything away from the story in terms of that, but I'm saying things like that are very, very crucial. Now, what's interesting about the Sea of Reeds, I did the research on the geology, because you can do the research on the geology of the planet going back thousands of years. If you do a geological rewind in that region, based on tectonic plate movement, there would have been a massive quake, which would have caused a massive tsunami around that same exact time, which would have what? Sucked all the water out of the sea. So Amun-Ra took over, also known in the Bible as Marduk, and also known in the Sumerian tablets as Marduk as well. In Egypt, known as Marduk Amun-Ra. He took over kingship in the age of Pisces, which are those little fish that you see Christians running around with on the back of their cars. They think it's representing the multitude of fish by Jesus, but it's not. The Pisces symbol represents the kingship handed down to Amun-Ra if you go back in ancient times. That's the original meaning of it.
If you like this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.